Can you hear me without me shouting? Well, I've been given the job of welcoming you and putting a smile on my face, because apparently you've had an awful journey here. Is that right?
No, we're only 10 minutes late.
Ooh, who's been telling me porkies? Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone anyway. Now, we've got food planned for you in a minute, but we need to have a very proper welcome. And I'm going to usher my friend here. This is Pat Fordham, who is the chair.
That video, I'm going to have to have it destroyed.
Shall I take this down, Pat? Do you need it? No. You see, she's got a better voice than I've got.
Got a big gob is what they say usually. Can I just say it's lovely to see you all, and I know you've had a hectic journey here, but we had a group of your people earlier on that we looked after. They'd come in a car, so we've had a little conversation, but I won't give too much away. The only thing to tell you is, I think most of you found where the toilets are. But if there's too many in there, you can go into the main building and there's disabled and whatever. Exactly whatever you find in there is everywhere in Boonie. It's a big event for all of you to think about what you're wanting to do and what your hopes and dreams are. We did exactly the same all those years ago with Lewisham. In 2005 ours started. And we're here. But it's about all you working together and you telling people what you really want. And if they don't hear what you want, then you're never going to get it. So that's my advice. I'm not going to speak anymore because Jim's just taken them on. No, it's all right. They could hear me too.
Pat, they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just to say that if you don't all of you pull together as a group and think about what you really truly want to have happen where you live, and it is your homes, you've got every right to have a say in what goes in there and what goes on around them.
You have to turn that one up. God,
Come to the front. Can you hear me now? Oh, lovely. So, I'll say it again. You have got to be the people that actually do the moving and the shaking. It will be you that will make it what you want it to be and pull together as a group. You'll get opposition all along the line. And it is quite frightening what you're going to do, because we did it and we didn't know what we were doing really and truly, apart from when we went to Preston, because they're very similar to a community gateway and they're about the same size as Fulham and Hammersmith. So it's not inconceivable that it can't be done. It can be done. And they're spread over a long, long way. Preston's been a gateway, as a gateway would be. How many years would you say, Jim?
before us.
Way before us. And it was us that found Preston at a conference up in Birmingham. And Lewisham just said, you know, go off and see if you can bring anything back to us. Not thinking we did, but we did, much to their surprise. So this is where we are. There'll be lots of information for you. Some of it you won't always take on board, but you're most welcome to. I've got some cards if you just want to give a ring or a little bit of reassurance. And we're always happy to come over and have words with you. We're quite happy to come and support all of you if that's what you want. I mean, some people will be fearful of it because it's a change, and change is fearful. We really thought that our tenants that have been with Lewisham for many, many years, when we went out for the vote, we never believed that they would vote for us, because the usual adage is, best the devil you know. And it wasn't what they wanted. They wanted to be able to say what colour went on their walls, what their kitchen looked like, and all the rest of it. You might have had all of that done, but this area didn't have any of that. It had nothing done at all. So I'm going to shut up now. And you're going to have some nice lunch, and we can talk a little bit later on. Over to you.
So just briefly to do the introductions, that is my boss, Pat Fordham, and she's the chair of Phoenix, and she lives over there. And if I just pointed them out to you, so David Cummins. Hello, everyone. He's the vice chair, and he lives over there. And Anne McGurk, who started off, another vice chair, and you live up there. And Peter Lewis, who's also on the board. And you live up there, don't you? And Mike Boniface, who's a new member on the board. And you live over there. And I'm Jim Ripley, I'm the chief executive, and I live up there. And Jonathan Lawn, who's arranged all this.
Hello.
He lives miles away. So we just wanted to say, look, we're so pleased that you've come over to visit us, and as Pat and Anne said, where you are now, we hope that we can just give you some information about what's happened to us, and if you do overcome all the hurdles, because there's a lot of hurdles, and if you do end up becoming a community gateway, and the residents, you own and run the organisation, and you manage people like me to work with you and for you, then we think it's a fantastic thing. I mean, we really do. And the staff you meet at Phoenix, it might have been a bit difficult for them as well to start off with, and realise actually it's not working for the local authority, for the council anymore. You're working for the residents. Now, we always believed we worked for the residents, but really work for the residents, and the residents run the place. That was a difficult transition for the staff as well. And if you ask any of them now, and they were telling me this week, that they wouldn't want it any other way now, any other way. And even though at the beginning it was difficult. So we really hope that we can support you in any way you want, and enjoy the day. We're going to start off with a film. I hope you might have seen it. If you've seen it, is it? What is it?
It's the introduction to Phoenix. You've got it on the coach.
You've seen it on the coach?
Yeah.
I've seen it somewhere. But then you can save some time then. Do you want to save some time? So what? See Anne. She's waving her hand at the back. And Marie? So Cian was one of our apprentices, weren't you? So that's one of the great things about Phoenix. We've got loads of apprentices. And you're now a permanent member of staff. Having had a baby, you came back. So she's fantastic. Anyway, so one table at a time to avoid any difficulties. Shall we do one table at a time, and then if you wouldn't mind getting your food and then coming back to your table, then the next table can go. And then when we've done that, we're going to do a tour of the building, and if you want, we can have a chat as you're eating. So is that okay with everyone?
Can I just say one? So it's just one thing. We are filming today. If you're uncomfortable with being filmed, then please can you just make yourself known, and we'll or move to the side of the room, just because the camera will be focusing this way. Just wanted to make you aware.
Is that okay? So table number 1, go! Is it okay if I just start? Because if I don't, we're going to run out of time. Okay, so what's going to happen? I'm just talking as you're eating, so don't worry. Carry on. And there's desserts as well, so you could just... What we're going to do is we're going to have a tour of the building, and we're going to split up into groups. So before we do that, I'm going to tell you a bit about the building and answer hopefully some of the questions, because there's quite a lot going on, so it's probably best to do a virtual tour from here. Then those who want to come on the tour we'll split up into 3 groups.
Someone might need the lift, Jim.
And then others who don't want to come can stay here. So firstly, just to fill in some questions, the first question that I had was, where are we? Which is a very good question. So we're in the London Borough of Lewisham, and Lewisham stretches from the River Thames, New Cross and Deptford are by the river, next to Bermondsey, which isn't in Lewisham, and then it comes all the way out to up the hill there, which is London Borough of Bromley, which is Kent really. So what this area here, the transfer that took place from Lewisham had 35,000 council properties. A lot of them were inherited from the GLC and before that the London County Council. And there's a large number of properties, 35,000. They decided, because of the decent homes thing, that they couldn't make them all decent at the same time, so they went for this mixed approach. So there was the Albo, Lewisham Homes, which is still going, that's 16,000, and then there was various other solutions for different areas. This area is mainly 3 wards, and the area is called Bellingham is 1 ward, Whitefoot and Downham. And, you know, because we are aware that Hammersmith and Fulham is a large area with lots of different estates. So you may consider yourself to be Barons Court or Hammersmith or Fulham or Chiswick, I don't know. But here we had the same thing over a smaller area. We got like about 6,500 homes in 3 wards. Originally the whole area was council, and the London County Council built the estate in the interwar period in the 1920s. So that the reason why the Lewisham wanted this area dealt with separately was because it's older. Most of the properties built in the 1920s, and as Pat will say, it never had any very little investment compared to the other areas. So you'd had the area New Cross, Deptford, with the big estates there, had large amounts of problems and lots of money put into it. This area was considered to be in the countryside, lots of green spaces, trees, gardens and all that, so it didn't have much investment. Everyone had a garden, but you know. So what happened was, when they looked at the decent homes thing, there was a huge amount of investment required to bring them up to standard. So they said to the residents, what do you want? And Pat and the others, and they'll tell you a bit more about it, decided they wanted they didn't want to be part of L&Q or Hyde Housing Association. They wanted to do something for themselves. Now that is a very special thing in itself because it requires bravery. And it wasn't necessarily that the people on the council didn't necessarily understand what their vision was. And they did have a vision, and it was very clear what their vision was, which was something for this area for themselves, that they were going to run and control, and they'll tell you about that. It was very difficult. I joined in 2007, and I wasn't part of Lewisham, so I didn't know what they'd been through to get to where they were. But they then started doing it all from 2007. So the area, as I said, is south of Lewisham, and some of our properties are in London Borough of Bromley. So the area, a lot of people here don't necessarily see that New Cross or Deptford have that much to do with them. They may see more in common in this, but nevertheless, Bellingham, which is on that side of the main road, and Whitefoot here and Downham up the hill, they are different areas, and they didn't necessarily have much in common with each other, they thought. That was one of the big problems they had to overcome, which is why we built this building, coming to this building. So when we started off, we took over the offices that Lewisham already had, and some of them were local housing offices. So you'll be familiar with the housing estate offices. But they weren't very nice, and we had to rent them off the council. So we wanted to get all the staff together in one building. It was impossible. And in fact, the day we started, we wouldn't have been able to start our business here, running Phoenix, if Pat hadn't found an old paint shop down the road, because we didn't have enough space to put all the staff. So Pat found this place in Elmer Road, and it was the only place. If it hadn't been for that, honestly, we wouldn't have got going. So we had like 20 staff in this building, an old paint shop, and I was in a day centre, one of our community centres over there, and then we had 2 housing offices, so you can see it was pretty difficult. unfortunately, all the computers and the telephones, it was all a bit of a problem. And the repairs service was in above Screwfix or Plum Centre in the South Circular Road, their stuff. So it was all over the place, really. We managed to do things okay, but we wanted to get everyone together. So the only place we could get was after 2 years, we got an office block in Bromley, outside of the borough. We told the council we're going to have to take nearly 200 staff out of the borough. We don't want to do it, but we have no choice. So we did. And then during that time, we rented this office and we improved. We got a lot better when we got all the staff together, because before it was obviously very difficult. We brought the repairs team in. And then everyone was working together, and it really improved the repairs service and everything else. But we weren't in the heart of our area. Now, this was an old pub, and this happens to be the only bit that's bang in the middle of our area. And all the bus services are outside, and it's the one place you can get to. And it was owned by, well, it took us ages to find out who owned it. It was an old pub, massive pub, but it had been derelict for many years. We wouldn't have what you're going to see today if it wasn't for us being a community gateway owned by the residents. Because what would have probably have happened is that it have either moved into a sort of old council offices, which we didn't want, or we didn't want, for obvious reasons, to move back to the council. Or we would have probably been like a modern housing association, which would have had telephone service, so we could have moved anywhere, promoting telephone service, and a really good telephone service in an industrial estate, because there is an industrial estate up here. We could have got a place there, but no residents would have been allowed in there, really, because it wouldn't have been accessible. So Pat and David and me, we used to come up and down this road, and we said, we want the office in this building here, which, as I said, would have been derelict. And they put in a planning application for flats, which was refused. So me and Pat and David spent some years trying to find out who owned it. We then found it was owned by L&Q. We had a block of flats up the top of the road that was structurally unsound, had garage sites. I heard someone mention a garage project that you were doing. We had 60 garages there, and we had a block of 12 flats. So we went to L&Q. You know who L&Q are? Oh, sorry, right, L&Q, London and Quadrant, big housing association all over London. Yeah, massive housing association. So we said to them, we didn't have the money to buy this, because this was worth £3.5 million just to buy the site. We said, we'll swap it for our garages and block of flats. And most people think that that's a bit sort of unusual thing to do. You may even say mad. And the board, bear in mind our board was made up majority of tenants, but also some independents. Some of the people on the board thought we were a bit bonkers, didn't they, Pat? But the residents said, no, we're going to do it. So, you know, this is the sort of thing I promise you wouldn't have happened if we weren't run by and owned by residents. They said, we want this place and we want it to be for the residents. So anyway, it was really difficult. We did swap it, and now there's 44 flats and houses built on where we couldn't have done it at that time, on the block of flats and the garage site built by L&Q. That's there, and we built this place. Now, I'm going to just briefly take you through it, but the history of the place is we didn't want to demolish a pub. We have got another pub up the road, which is going to be amazing, and it will be a pub. But we didn't want to demolish the pub, but the pub was in a terrible state, burnt down and had floods and everything. So we knew that to build on here, we'd have to demolish it. So the idea was it was going to be a place, and the residents designed the place in terms of their decision was it would be a place, somewhere where people could come, and it would be owned by the community. And what happened was, when we designed it, the architecture design, they said we want a humble place, because we had a competition, and 3 of the architects came up with these big blocks that looked like a civic centre, and we chose a humble building. They said they wanted a humble building. because we didn't want to be flashy, but we wanted a place where people would feel comfortable, and it was open to everyone. The architect that designed it said his vision was, you know the South Bank, you know the Festival Hall? Yeah. It's called the People's Palace, that's the other name for it. That was his inspiration, and hopefully you'll see some of that when you walk around. So what you got in this building is a struggle, because also it wasn't easy to build. The prices rocketed, the board stayed faithful with it. It was the first building we built, and it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't easy, and we had to get out of the other building bang on time, and we had to hold our annual general meeting here where we had nearly 300 people, and it was just still the paint was drying when we came down to do that, so it was all very tight, and if we hadn't got out of the other building we'd have incurred about £200,000 in penalties. We managed it, and it was like, you know, it was touch and go. So the building comprises, I'll take you through it virtually. This is what we call the barn, and you can rent all these places, like community centres on, you know, community centres on estates, not generally used by everyone because they tend to be thought of like, it's my estate, I'll go on my estate to my community centre. And people don't necessarily live there, don't necessarily feel that comfortable going to that estate. So this is the community centre for everybody. We have weddings, funerals, the lot here. We've got a wedding licence, we've got a music licence, and we've got an alcohol licence. So this is well used, really well used, keep fit, whatever, right? So, and we rent it out to people like the Heritage Lottery Fund did their national thing here, and well, where you are, you could do anything where you are because you've got all the big companies and all that. So we make a bit of money on here. But the door's open and out there is a square. We wanted like an old London square where, you know, it's very, very busy road there, but thousands of people coming up and down this street. So there's a bus stop out there. So we have markets out here. This opens up. That's that. So then you go into the main building, and some of you have been in there. On the left, the first thing you see is a cafe. We wanted a cafe for everybody. It's not for the staff, it's for everybody. And the cafe it's been very successful. We've had a number of trainees and apprentices go through it. We run that, it's our cafe, but we run it in partnership with a social enterprise. And it's, well, I really love it, but we can tell them what we want on the menu, or ask them nicely. Alan's looking at me in the back. And hot food, we're about to improve it and put in a kitchen, so they don't have proper cooking facilities. Then we had a couple of business units on the left, but that's where you see the housing reception area. So years ago we got rid of any counters. Do you have counters where you are when you go into the housing office? Not anymore?
Some of them, yeah.
So we got rid of all the barriers years ago, and now, and the staff will tell you that since we got rid of the barriers, we haven't had any trouble. We used to have the trouble when there were barriers because people would try and jump over them. So touch wood, we don't have any trouble, but sometimes, you know, people get upset, that happens. Then we got a couple of private interview rooms, and then we got the big hub area. And what we said about the big hub area is that that's got to be flexible. It's like a big market hall. When you're in there, you'll see these desks around the middle. And this morning, because I don't think there'll be too many people there. Right, I'll tell you what I saw this morning when I came out of the staircase. I opened the door and I saw a line of school children all about that high. Must have been 15, 20 of them, all lined up in a crocodile, going into the training kitchen, which is in the far corner. And then I saw about 15 people doing Job Centre Plus around the middle, where the desks are, all had computers, and our staff are helping them get back into work. And David, over there, he doesn't like me saying it, but he's an absolute star, because what he does, he volunteers, and any resident can make an appointment to see him. And this morning he was working with some tenants who didn't have confidence about getting on computers. And every day virtually I see David or other people there learning how to get on computers, and it is really fantastic, because you'd be surprised how many people have no confidence at all on a computer. And he's got the patience, which someone like me hasn't, about showing someone how to use a mouse and things like that. It's fantastic. Then in the top corner, you've got the credit union. And the credit union is an independent organisation which the board gave them that area for 10 years free, and they fitted it out for 250,000 quid. They got 12,000 members. Many of our tenants are members and leaseholders are members, and many of this community are members, and it's really busy, it's shut in the afternoon to catch up on the paperwork. So they come through the building and they use the other facilities. We have arrangements with them, so for example, someone who's in a large amount of debt and we would otherwise have to evict, they will pay off their debt, we'll pay off a little bit, and they have to have an arrangement with the credit union for that. So that's the credit union. And then, as I said, the kitchen in the corner, similar arrangement. We gave that to Lewisham for 10 years, rent-free. That was the board did that. What do we get out of it? Well, we get school kids going there, and it's an amazing place. Every Thursday for 6 weeks, we've got the pupil referral unit. Do you know, the pupil referral unit is for the excluded children from Lewisham. And their school, I'm telling you, I shouldn't say this now, because I'm on film. Anyway, they don't, to get out from the building where they are into this place is a complete change for them. And as I said, there's loads of school kids use it to learn healthy cooking. I had a chocolate eclair there last week.
Really?
They even did healthy chicken nuggets. And, but the rest of the time, it's run by Chartwells, who do these school meals for 83 schools, which is employment for 500 people, one of the biggest employers. So we work in partnership with them, and out of that contract we get a full-time worker. Again, you wouldn't get this if we were a big housing association, because we focus on the locality. And all the school kids, on Friday it's also used by the food bank, open community sessions. It's really brilliant, so you'll see that hopefully. The last thing to say about the hub is that it can be cleared in about 2 hours, completely cleared. That's where we have big events, it's rented out, we have our annual general meeting. If you become a community gateway, the annual general meeting is fantastic. It's the event that we all look forward to. Everyone turns up and votes on things, and that's when you feel like you really own the organisation. And it's a big, important part of our calendar. We really wanted it in our building, so that was important to us. On a Monday, yesterday, we had loads of stalls there, people selling it like market stalls. So there was someone selling bonsai trees, someone selling woody hats, someone selling jewellery. So that's the other thing, it's a market hall. We have music nights there, comedy, whatever, because this place was a bit, it used to be really lively, and there used to be bands and dancing and everything down here. And now there's nothing. So the residents wanted something happening. So that's that. You go up the stairs, and then you got, I don't know how many staff, but all our staff are in the open plan office upstairs. And I hope you will have a quick look at the repairs bit, because you'll see our cooler centre and our repairs centre. And just very briefly, one of the things that make me most proud is the repairs service, which we brought back in-house. And it's all our staff now. So if you see anyone dressed in blue, they are a repairs operative. We do all the gas servicing, everything's in-house, the void properties, everything. And the board made that decision. Anne is the chair of the board. We have our subsidiary that owns the repairs service, and Anne's the chair. And it's going really well. And you will see, as you sort of talk to them, you can see all the repairs as they are happening now. And I have to say that from 35% no access, we're now up to, we get into virtually every job, so we're efficient. If you ring up this morning for a job, you may well get the job done this afternoon. And 100% satisfaction, which makes me very happy because I get no complaints. Touch wood. That's the building. So, what we're going to do now, do you want to ask any questions before we go, or shall we?
Yeah, I'd like to ask that. This is all very nice and natural, but what about people that's in job housing?
Right, well, sheltered housing, they're very welcome. We get a lot of people that come and visit us that love coming here, and we go out and get them as well. Plus, the other thing that the board are aware that we weren't doing enough about our older citizens. So what we are doing, our first new build project is an extra care scheme, which is just over the road. We're building 60 flats there, really high quality flats at social rents. And the board took that decision. The first thing we did was to build a block of flats. It's going to be amazing. And it's all we've been visiting all our older tenants, and we now identified 40 that are currently under occupying. So 20 of them in 3-bed, 14 in 2-bed homes, and they have also, those ones have said they want to move there. So Lewisham didn't transfer any shelter to us, but we're building our own. Yeah.
So they will be able to use these facilities.
Yeah.
will they not?
Absolutely. And this,
Right, well, I'm talking about Hammersmith and Woodall that have got sheltered housing now. What beneficiary it's going to be to them? What are they going to
Pat's the best person to answer that. Is for she doesn't. What we're saying within, like Anne lives in a block that's for elders. So you want to say something? All right.
For the elderly.
I live in a block that's for the over 55s, along with, I've lost him, Peter somewhere. You can see I do, can't you? I can't see him, he's in front of me. What exactly is it you want to know?
What I want to know is that there's a majority in here, quite a few of us are in sheltered housing.
Right.
Now, what beneficiary would it be to us?
That's I think the key thing. Whoever said that is you would have more of a voice if it's run in the same way that we are run. If it's a gateway model, you would have a very clear voice on the policies that happen, the way decisions are made, on how money is spent, who gets employed. You will have a voice.
That would be as far as it goes. There won't be any more added to that, like what you've got here.
Well, yes, because you would have that voice. It was our voice that decided to build the extra care scheme. It's our voice, the residents' voice, that decided to build this building. It's the residents' voice that said, we need something, how can we have it? You then go to your officers and you say, look, this is what the residents want. How do we do it? They're the ones with the skill.
You've got the money eventually, and you've got the chance to get these places. Where we live, there isn't anywhere to build an extra room or extra facilities. There isn't anything. So the only say we would get is to do with repairs and rents and things like that. That's as far as we would go in our section.
Well, I don't know your area, I have to be the first to say that. So I don't know whether your officers and your residents would be looking round at the environment and seeing if there were any properties that you could adapt to meet your needs, that you could do a swap like the one that Jim explained with another housing association because they've got this building and you could swap this property for that. You know, those are the sorts of things that you as a resident could say, look, we need this problem solving. This is what we want our officers to do, to go and look round the land, look at the property, look at the vacant property, look at the derelict property, look at the deals that you can make and look for funding. You can get one of the things that we've got, which I've no doubt Jim will speak about, is we got lottery funding for the Fellowship Inn, which we're developing and building into another community environment. There's going to be a theatre there, a cinema there, a brewery there. So, you know, that's a case of getting the officers saying, we want this in our area.
Yeah, well, you're very lucky to get that, but I don't think in Hammersmith you get that.
It's more about what you make, what demands you make of your officers in the end.
Can I just say you talk about that? So if we made ourselves really sharp,
We're going to do, they've got, I've just seen a number of people with their hands up, so we're going to do this in a row, and then we're going to do the walkabout. Is that all right? And then there's opportunities for questions later on.
No. But basically, I'd like to ask. Okay, this all sounds fantastic, fabulous, and so forth. But will I be living long enough to see it happen? Yeah, sort of that. No, and also the this thing about demand. You know, sort of like if we start demanding pretty fast and say, right, here's the cash, here's the lottery, here's the money, blah 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 blah. How fast could we get it going?
So, we've been on a journey. I think the question was how long. Like, Pat and me and David was in particular very impatient. But when you're working in a team, which is, there's a lot of things to get in place. At least you've got a vision, right? And I think that it was very clear that we wouldn't have, like for us, it's 8 years to get here. And it is a long time, but it's gone very quickly. And the David one's gone for this, because he's the one that is the most impatient, along with me. Yeah.
I want it right now.
And I am as well, but when you're doing it, it goes quicker than you think.
Yeah.
I think. Is it on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that's all right. I'm glad. So I talk to myself a lot.
We've noticed.
What it's all about is it's the tenants and leaseholders here who have a say. You ask the staff to work with you, but there is no no's anymore. If you are a gateway, you are part of the organisation, and for sheltered housing, you can set up your own network or other sheltered housing, and actually all come together and say, this is what we want the gateway to do. But before we actually say anything else, and before you get the vote, you should have a choice of actually choosing your own chief executive. Right? This is how you actually get someone to push for you. You can be asked, the council might want you to have this gentleman or that gentleman because it's a high flyer, but they can sit in their office with suits on, just shifting paper around. You want someone to get out, sorry if I'm being rude, off their arse and get out on the estates and the housing. And the other thing with the gateway is it's the houses in streets that we actually do very well with. Normally, if you want anything done, if you live on an estate, you will get your decent homes or windows, whatever. But people who live in houses don't even get a roof done. Might be 10 years or something like that. But at the end of the day, you all have one thing in common. If you vote for the community gateway, the tenants and leaseholders are actually listened to, and the staff have got to work with you, not against you. Okay?
So we're just going around up to see. I'll come to you, so we're just going around this way. So.
Can it be called the Green Woman?
We would have called it the Green whatever, but it was always called the Green Man. That was the pub. Yeah, all right, the Green Woman.
Green.
Right.
Just you mentioned, I think that you said you had 200 staff.
Yeah.
Is that right? And are they all drawn from your sort of residents? And what do they do?
We have about 200 staff, and when we started off, obviously there was 2P, so they transferred 70 staffs transferred over. But residents were on the interview panel for the staff, so nearly all the staff, whatever, be it temporary or whatever, will have a resident on their panel for the interviewing. So on my panel, it was only residents, I think. So does that answer your question?
Are the staff all drawn from your sort of population, or they just?
Most of these staff live within a couple of miles of the area, but a lot of other staff, he lives in Whitstable.
But what do they do? Are they mostly doing like repairs or?
Everything. So we brought most things in-house in terms of IT, everything is in-house, comms, HR, payroll, everything is in-house. Because some things were not. Like, for example, Lewisham had Capita doing their IT, and it was a bit of a, but the board wanted to have control over everything. We found it was a lot easier to bring it in-house. Plus, you save quite a bit of money because of VAT and other things. Sorry, next.
I might need the mic.
My question is about governance. I see you've got independent people and you've got other people and you've got residents. Have the residents got an absolute majority? You say resident-led. Have they got an absolute majority? And what's the role of independence? I don't know how anyone can be independent when it's an issue of housing, because it is a very emotive issue, particularly at the moment with the housing bill going through.
Well, the governance is something that we spent a long, long time on. You know, most important things to get the governance right, and we've spent many years learning about it. And there's someone going to talk to you about it later. But in essence, now, if you came into the board meeting, we would hope that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a resident, an independent, or a councillor. They're all board members, and they're all making decisions on behalf of everyone else. That is their job. Early days, we had a couple of people that thought, well, I'm an independent and I know what's right because I'm an expert, because that's why they thought they'd been appointed. No, we do a proper, Pat does a full board appraisal every year and make sure we've got the skills and expertise right across the board to do certain things. So it might be that we've got a resident who's a brilliant finance person, and I'm sure you have, and an accountant, right? But it might be that you need an independent to come in and be an expert on accountancy. But if they come in, and this is what happened, Pat had to deal with this, well, you can answer that better than me, about what happened when, on the board, Pat, that was the question, when people didn't necessarily do it for the right reasons.
Well, we did have a time where we had a couple of, they were tenants as well, and also experts, as they call themselves, some of them. Like Jim just said, they always knew better than you did. Didn't matter that you lived there. Half of them never lived there, so they wouldn't know really and truly what your trials and tribulations were. When we did the appraisals the first time round, we'd already got a group that would come as a shadow board to begin with, because we were not an organisation. We weren't even named at that time. It was fine at that time to have people like that, because they were getting us through the first steps. But when we did the complete, we always make sure that I always have somebody that's with me which is completely outside of this organisation. So he would be my confidant, but also would be there with me to do the appraisals. And that's looked upon greatly by the great and the good from up above. I don't mean Lewisham, I mean the government. That you've got someone outside appraising who you've got round the table. And at the end of it, we both looked at one another and we said, this lot are not going to get us where we want to go to. And where we wanted to go to is where we are here. So we actually, one by one, they kind of got the message that they are not going to be suitable for what we wanted. But they were so high and mighty that they really believed they knew better than anybody else. And they come from other councils locally as well. Decided to get the ICAL and the MI5 mob come in. And really and truly, we're going to try and get me off the board and stick some of these people on it and be in charge of it all. Quite powerful people, they thought they were, but they don't know us as tenants. I mean, I think when you've fought a fight for what? I've been I'll say an activist, a tenant activist. This will be my 32nd year of doing it. And we've fought hard and long with Lewisham for all sorts of things, just minor things that you would get in the normal thing, a run of the mill. And they were not happy that we wanted to do stuff anyway. So my way of thinking is, if you're used to those head-to-heads, because it is head-to-heads, and it's about if you're so sure on what you're doing is what your people want, and it's them that are saying they want it, then you've got to stick in there. Well, it is, because the one thing as a group, we had quite a few tenants' associations, and the one thing that they could not relinquish, they didn't have to, if they carried on in the right way, relinquish the association and become one big member. So when they appeared at the board or one of their own meetings, because they used to have their own group meeting, which was called the PRG, they would bring personal problems to that board. Now, no board member brings personal problems. The one thing that is quite hard to get into people's mindset, this is a business. We are not a council anymore. We run a multi-million-pound organ. Don't ask me what a multi-million-pound is. I mean, I say it, I've never seen it, but do you know what I mean? But it frightens me even knowing that much, that it's a multi-million-pound organisation. So what I'm saying is, to try and stop people. Well, we've got trouble over there with the bloody kids, they're climbing here, they're doing that. We're not there for that. We're there to do the business. And in the end, it got so bad that slowly, it was gradually, they moved away, and we all came together, and it was far much more easier. We were new, we tried everything to encourage people. And I've heard quite a few people that have said here today, I think over there, said about people in sheltered housing. Well, let me tell you, we had a really seriously disabled young man that used to be, right, Stephen, do you remember him, Jim? Stephen came to everything, his speech had gone and everything. But you know what? He was on the board, he was part of it, he was part of the groups. And it's about, sometimes, and I don't mean this rudely, you can have to get off, as someone said, and I won't say the word because I'm right near the church, and he's listening today. Yeah, get off your arse. Get off your arse and do it yourself, because no other bugger's going to do it for you. If you are so incensed that your people are not getting what they want, and it's about finding out what they want, like we did. We've stood in blizzards, we've had tables down in Lewisham, we've had tables down in Catford, outside the pubs, not in them, outside the pubs, post offices, the co-op, anywhere where people gather, and they come and ask you. This is way before people voted for what they wanted. And it's about saying what you want. I know most of you have had all your decent homes done for 8 years. And if you ain't, well, then there you go. Why haven't they done it? Well, that's what I mean. So what I'm saying to you is, it's about, if that part of it's been done, you haven't got the fight that we had. So you've got the fight to make your own decisions as a group. You might be in, like, I think the last people that came really believed that they were all going to be put into one building, but I don't know how that would work. But you know, you can still be a community gateway. Look at Preston, they're scattered, and they've got different areas that they've got their staff in, but they work to the same format.
What about the security?
What security?
Like, how is all this kept very secure?
We've got security on
Okay.
all night. We've got cameras. It's secured top to bottom.
The other thing was that